Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadravimam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Bhadram Karnevi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyem Akshabhirya Jatraha Sthirairangai Stishtuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayoho Swasti na Indro Vridhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarsho arishtanemihi Swasti no brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 3, number 38.
Chapter 3, number 38. Amini, will you help us out, please?
Sure thing. Do you happen to have the page? Oh, wait, no. It's okay. I'll find it. No worries. 38. Got it. Okay.
Chapter 3.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I'm
okay.
Francesca. She was having some trouble. Chapter 3, verse 38. Find it? Do you have the page number, anybody?
280.
280. Okay. All right, we're ready.
Okay. Graho na tatra notsargaschinta yatra na vidyate atma samstham tada jnanam ajati samatam gata. There, in the self, which is the final fulfillment of actions of the mind, there is neither any perception nor any self-projection into ideas. Established in the self, the jnana reaches the state of immutability and homogeneity.
So when we have a verse like this, we always teach it from two viewpoints. So first, physical sensation only gets as far as my body. Emotions, judgments only get as far as my mind. Thoughts, images, memories only get as far as my intellect. Deep sleep is one homogeneous mass of ignorance. But in the self, there's nothing. Yet it is. It is without any vimarsha, any deliberation, without any vikalpa, movement or thought. So, one interpretation of the verse is a description of myself. And the practice that's implied is I want to move my identity back to that, not get enmeshed, involved, worried about physical world, emotional world, the thought world. They are fundamentally vaithatya, false. The other interpretation of this is a reference to the yogi's entry into nirvikalpa samadhi. Now, some of us have studied Tripura Rahasyam. I think, isn't that what you and I are doing?
Yeah.
So it was a week or two ago where we had this marvelous description of what is nirvikalpa samadhi. So what that text talks about is, well, really, what is the mind? And don't worry about whether it's mind or intellect. That's irrelevant. It all has to simply do with function. We've got two elements. The first is prakasha. What's that mean? You know?
Light?
Meenakshi?
Sorry.
Light. So we have the light of awareness. It doesn't mean you see a bright light. It means you are the awareness by which everything is lighted up and made known. And then we have vimarsha, which literally means deliberation. But what in this context, it means any movement of thought, feeling, image, perception. Remove the vimarsha, and what's left is the prakasha. So listen very carefully. People have moments of nirvikalpa all the time. I think in our modern parlance, we would say, oh, so-and-so was spacing out. Now, I don't mean where you go to another kind of thinking and you're not paying attention to what's happening. But when the mind stops for moments, we would call these fleeting samadhis. But they do nothing to free us. Who can tell me why?
Because the faculties are going out.
Yes.
Attentive faculties.
So I like to use this example. Someone's been working downtown in San Francisco all day and they're just exhausted. And it's 4:30. They got off work and they're on the BART train and they're headed back to the East Bay and it's crowded and there's no seat and they're hanging on to the overhead. Any of you ever had that experience? Yeah. And they just space out. And then the mind returns. And what did they realize? Back of BART's seat. That's where the mind was focused before the thoughting stopped. That's where the mind was focused when the thoughting started up again. What were you thinking about? No, nothing. I just spaced out. So as well as the stopping of the mind, having that space between the thoughts, the attentive faculty has to be turned within. So the subtle intellect notices what's there. The light of the mind has to be turned back upon its source. Now listen carefully. samadhi does not have to be for a long period. We have, in the literature, oh, King Janaka was lost in Nirvikalpa Samadhi for a muhurta, 48 minutes. Doesn't have to be any length of time. But if we're prepared with understanding, if we're prepared to know what it is to look for, this is called paroksha jnanam, indirect knowledge. I have understanding. Then when the mind stops, Swamiji used to say, when the last thought is thoughted, before the next thought starts thoughting. In the space between your thoughts, with the attentive faculty turned within, who are you? What are you? A very famous Zen koan. What was your face before your mother's birth? A bell ringing in an empty sky. Back in the first chapter, the seventh mantra, we had all these descriptors. Vijnana Kanam, a homogeneous mass of pure awareness. Chidakash, empty space of pure consciousness. And without the thoughting, the sense that I'm a person falls. Then when the mind returns from samadhi, we have again what Tripura Rahasyam calls pratyabhinyanam, recognition. It's in the subtle intellect, you get the aha. Oh, there's nobody there. Where did myself go? So, one has to be very careful that we don't make nirvikalpa samadhi another object of desire. I'm going to grip the mind into quiescence. It doesn't work that way. What you get with that is what we call a jada samadhi. Jada means inert. Sometimes people who were in the Raja Yoga tradition, who practiced pranayama with the what we call the bandhas, where you block the breath. You can stop the mind for a moment, but if all the vasanas are still there, what you have is an experience of I see nothing. But that individual I is still very solidly there because it's held in place by vasana. It's the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. But in this beginning, if you practice this deep introversion of the attentive faculty, after you've attained some purity of mind, make the goal, what is my essential nature? Who am I? What am I? And then if you prepare this process by scripture study, the teaching of the Guru, and your own mananam, reasoning it out, then when these moments happen, you begin to have aparoksha jnana, direct experience. Someone can describe to you a sunset out at Ocean Beach. Oh, it was so lovely last night when I went there. But all you have is indirect knowledge. But if you go out to Ocean Beach and watch the sunset over the ocean, direct. So when we get a verse like this, we always understand it from the two viewpoints. First, it's a description of myself. The second, it's a description of what the jnani experiences when the mind disappears. Depth of meditation is more important than length of meditation. Well, then why are you telling us to meditate for long and continuous hours? Because it takes that long for the stupid mind to slow down. If in a 20, 30, 40-hour meditation, you can have moments of real quiescence, you're doing very well. And as your practice matures, all that settling down, that noise, disappears much more. In those moments of insight, vipassana. Who here has done a vipassana retreat? What's the word mean? That's Pali. The Sanskrit would be vipassana. The root is pashyati, which means to see. V is a prefix, it's a superlative. It's usually translated as insight, but it can mean to really see what's really going on. That is the fruit of samadhi. Once you begin to see the no thingness of self, and all through the day, just like any ordinary person, when you have these fleeting samadhi, it's a reminder. Now, nothing stops the mind more completely or more quickly than staying focused on the I am. And remember, if you can see it, if it has a beginning and an end, if it has qualities or characteristics, if it's confined to the waking, dream, or deep sleep state, most importantly, if it has a beginning, I did have said that, if it's objectively known, it is imagination. What's real? What's our definition of reality? We talked about the beginning, reality with a capital R. That which is never subject to negation. That which always is. When are you ever not you? But ignorance of that fact causes this jiva bhavana, this feeling that I'm a person, to arise. Largely, I'm the body, or the body's activities or station or characteristics. And immediately, when that jiva bhavana arises, I have a feeling, I'm calling it now spiritual impoverishment. I'm not enough, the world's not enough. I need to be more, better, different, or the world needs to be more, better, different. And from that comes kartavya, struggle, kama. My happiness, my peace of mind is projected externally and into the future. This is subtle stuff. If it's not resonating or making sense, just put it on the shelf. These ideas will come around again. Any thoughts or questions?
Question.
Yes, sir.
You seem to, you seem to infer that those types of moments occur, and to be aware of those moments, to just see and that to sink back in instead of out. In practice, I call it stopping, which is many, many, many times during the day, just stopping and allow quiet to come in and notice. Where I'm not doing it, but there's a sense that tuning into that, what you're talking about. Is that the same thing?
Well, language falls short.
No, no.
Language sounds pretty good.
Okay, sounds good.
But
Good for that.
let me give you an example of something that doesn't work. So I have a friend who was actually good friends with Ram Dass. And one time he was sitting doing drishtipat, staring in the eyes with another person. Anybody ever done that?
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, Ram Dass, I see all these past incarnations, and then I saw Hanuman." And then, in other words, he didn't use the Shakti to stop his mind and notice his self. His mind moved into that thunderous silence and quiet, but it was outward directed. So what did he realize? Ram Dass's stuff.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
So you got to be careful that when you're stopping, do you have this introversion of your attention?
Right.
Are you noticing the no-thingness of yourself? Why is this important? Because ego's strategy is always protect, defend, secure myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's thank you. Very good.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So anything that can be perceived, known, anything like that is not, it's imagination, it's not real.
Yes.
And yet we are aware of awareness. So
Are you? Is there one awareness aware of another awareness?
that's a really good question. Let me examine that, experiment with that.
See, how do you know you were you? And the self is, the words we have in scripture are swayambhu, which means self-evident,
Yeah, right.
self-luminous. The classic example is, if it's nighttime and the room is dark, I turn on the lamp. The lamp is the light by which all the objects are illumined. But I don't have to go into my junk drawer and get a flashlight to illumine the light bulb. It shines of its own. It needs no second light to light it. You see that?
Yeah.
Likewise, yes, you know you are aware,
Right,
but you don't see awareness go by in front of you.
right,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
Oh, therefore I'm not aware. Well,
Obviously, you're aware. There's,
let's use another worldly examples. No person has ever seen their eyes.
right,
I've never seen my eyes, therefore I cannot see. That's stupid.
got it. That's a good.
No, it's an excellent question. Because if you're looking for awareness as if it's some state, no, it's always here.
Right. Yeah,
The self is difficult to realize, not because it's far away, but because of its super profound ordinariness. If it is an eternal factor, by definition, it means it always is. Because it always is, I take it for granted.
so when we're asleep, we're not aware.
Oh, yes, you are. And I can prove it.
Okay,
So there are several ways. The first we'll do is called the law of memory. The experiencer and the rememberer must be the same entity. Did you sleep well last night?
not particularly.
Did you know you didn't sleep well?
Yes,
Have you had nights where you have slept well?
yes.
See
Got
that?
it. Okay, yes, all right.
Did I sleep well?
I don't know,
Why not?
because I'm not you.
Yeah, you didn't experience it.
Right.
So another way to look at it, what's the difference between seeing darkness or being blind?
Well, because if you're seeing darkness, then you're able to see light, whereas if you're blind, you can't see either.
Yeah.
Got it.
So blindness would be like being unconscious. Seeing darkness. Awareness is illuminating the pure ignorance of deep sleep. The mind is in its avyakta, its unmanifest form. Now you can't think, oh golly, there's nothing there. You only can do that in the morning when you wake up.
Right, because you don't have the fact that.
You can't think in deep sleep.
Right, okay,
Making sense?
yeah,
You got it.
that's helpful, thank you.
Another classic one. Look around the room. You see the objects in your room. Close your eyes. Are you blind? No, you're seeing the back of your eyelids, which happen to obscure, occlude perception of the room. That's what deep sleep is like. Excellent question. All right. Next, Karika.
Um, 39. Aspasha yogo vai nama durdarshaha sarvayogibhihi yogino bibhyati hyasmadabhaya no hyasmadabhaye hayadarshinaha. This yoga, called the touch of the untouched, is hard to be attained by all seekers. Yogins are afraid of this path, for they feel frightened in that, where alone one can experience the true state of fearlessness.
Oh, this is a goodie. So this term asparsha yoga is taken from Gita. So let's peel it apart. So the first one, asparsha, the root is prichati, which means to touch. So asparsha means untouched. But yoga, what does yoga mean? Yoked or united. So it is the touch of the untouched, meaning the perception of the phenomenal world, the awareness of my body, my feelings, my thoughts can only take place because consciousness illumines them. The self is also the life principle. I am that which enlivens the body, mind, intellect. And it's the self in all living beings that enlivens them. Deepak Chopra was once asked, is the opposite of life death? And he says, no. The opposite of death is birth. There is no opposite to life. Yourself is a conscious being. A conscious being. There's only one of us here, but that being is conscious. Yet, because of it, the whole world dances. Yet, it is never changed. Just like there's a sparsha yoga to the pratibimba. Pratibimba is the reflection in the mirror. If Cheska goes in the bathroom and looks in the mirror, there's a person there. There's a Cheska there. It is the mirror itself appearing as your reflection. But when you walk out of the bathroom, what happens to the reflection? Gone. You can't reach in and grab the Cheska reflection and take it with you. Oh, she was looking pretty today. I think I'll keep her around. Yeah. Can't do that. So also, the whole universe is in the self. That the self doesn't change into the universe. It remains kutastha, stable, still. Meaning you never change. I'm having a senior moment here. Would you read the Karika in English one more time, please? I forgot the second half.
Sure. This yoga, called the touch of the untouched, is hard to be attained by all seekers. Yogins are afraid of this path, for they feel frightened in that where alone one can experience the true state of fearlessness.
So this is a very common experience when people are starting to get close to this deep insight. One of the things the mind confronts, everything you've ever held as important, as valuable, as part of your identity, is seen to be ephemeral, unimportant, imaginary. You mean all my relationships? They're all illusion? Yes. All the politics? Yeah. Well, what about people being blown up in wars? Mithya, illusory. everything we've thought of as my identity is nothing but vanity. And then the mind says, am I the hole in the donut? Ah, I won't exist. Do not worry. You are nirupa without a form, but you are not shunya. So many people find huge psychological resistance to this teaching. True story. I can remember being at a camp with Swamiji once, and he would usually do Gita talks in the evening and an Upanishad in the morning. I don't remember which Upanishad it was, but we would be sitting on our little asanas on the floor, and he would be up there on the stage. And I was looking at the back of this woman who was sitting in front of me. And as Swamiji began to talk about this eternal truth, the no thingness of the self, she literally toppled over sound asleep. She just could not bear to hear it because everything she thought she was, everything she thought was important, and everything we've invested our life in for decades is meaningless. Now, if the mind has been prepared through the practice of viveka and vairagya, let's review those definitions. That firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real, Brahman Satyam, and the phenomenal world is unreal, Jagat Mithya, is called discrimination between the real and the unreal. In the beginning, you can start with unreal, meaning it's impermanent. But as we've gone into the deeper meaning of it in this text, it literally has no substantive existence as a name or form, just imagination. In vairagya, that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses without exception. And that desire to give up identification, any idea of self. Why is this important? Well, can I hang on to my love affairs? Can I hang on to the poker room? Can I hang on to my political ideas? Can I hang on to the fact that I'm really smart? So if there's a rope there, and you, in your delusion, think there's a snake, I really want to see the rope. I know I've read scriptures that say that the snake isn't real, but I do enjoy kissing this snake. There's no snake there, Jim. Shh. Long as I'm still getting juice from the illusion. Brahma Satyam sudden. Now, many people read about Tantra or the Agora tradition. Can't you have, what was the phrase you used? Can't you have your cake and eat it too if you're a Tantri?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a misunderstanding of the path of Tantra. Tantra is where you go into the world and then see the truth by going into the world. A classic, very contemporary understanding of how Tantra works is our modern notions of recovery with addiction and alcoholism. So if you're in a 12-step program, we learn nobody comes into AA on a good day. Why did you show up for your first day in an AA meeting? Because your life is a wreck. Why? Because you kept going down the rabbit hole of intense experience. First, you take the drink, then the drink takes you. First, it's fun, and it's fun with problems, and it's just problems. So finally, when we bottom out, what their literature calls the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Isn't that a wonderful expression?
Very apt.
Until we have been beaten into humility by a huge helping of humble pie. Till we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. What happens? Third step in AA, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. You have to stop yet. It's called the bottom. When you hit bottom, you realize you're powerless over alcohol and drugs, and your life is unmanageable. That's pure Tantra. Pure Tantra. Yes, you may have the world. Go for it. Or as Swamiji used to say, go after the world. And he would laugh diabolically. Let it kick you in the teeth. Let it drop you again and again. It's the only way to kill the ego. Is this making sense? Some of us pursue the delusion of our addictive relationship with the world, the gates of insanity, illness. It's absolutely mind-boggling, the tenacity of the ego. But the way of the Tantrika, the Yagori, and the way of the sannyasi, the tyagi, both lead to the same place. You cannot realize your self-nature and have abiding peace without mature vairagya. So what happens? Again, I'm going to go back to the 12-step model. We have a condition in AA called white knuckling it. Who's heard that one? That's when you quit drinking, but you haven't dealt with the desire to drink. Oh, I'm working so hard. I'm working so hard. I'm not going to drink today. The desire remains behind. And there's no freedom in that. In fact, your friends are going to say, for God's sake, take a drink. You're driving the rest of us mad. But if you begin a spiritual program, the desire is removed. What's left? Freedom. And addiction and alcoholism is only an extreme and socially inappropriate form of the human condition. You look at what's going on in Washington, where we have the glorification of greed, revenge, flatter me, flatter me, flatter me. People have now begun to say, well, those are really cool values. Let's get the other party. Let's own them. You've heard this language. And that doesn't mean they may not have really good policies, but that attitude leads us to misery. Don't believe me, just look to your own direct experience. Very, very important point. Shankara says it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now. It's considered liberation. All the branches of yoga teach that. Not making it up. And it's scary. If I renounce everything, I won't have any fun. Why don't you try it for a while? And if you don't like living the life of a yogi, we will happily refund your misery. You may have it back. You can go be a fallen yogi. And there is no more painful state than a head full of yoga and a heart full of desire. Because you know better. You still do it. Any thoughts on this? Now, in the end, the world is a beautiful place. I have a student, we've been making our way through parts of Swami Tapovanam's text, his spiritual autobiography, Wandering in the Himalayas. And around every corner is joy, bliss. You would stop and just be overwhelmed by the beauty of the Himalayan forests. Constantly meeting these great Mahatmas, these just incredible human beings who've accomplished a great thing. And are incarnations of peace and of love. All right. Any other thoughts or questions on this? And why Gaudapada here says some of us are afraid. Afraid of the path of sannyas. Another true story. So there was a Swami, Chinmaya mission, and he was invited to Bhiksha. Bhiksha really means you go out with your begging bowl. You're a bhikshu. You can get one meal a day, beg for it. What it means in the Chinmaya mission is you invite the Swami to dinner, and you put on your fancy clothes and you pile on the food. And at the end, there's a thali, a metal tray with fruit on it, and there's an envelope with a check in it. Give that to the Swami. The Swami takes the envelope, puts it in his pocket, and then prasad, gives it, the fruit back to the people. And then the householder says, "Oh, Swamiji, you've done an amazing thing. You've given up the world." And the Swami then bends down and touches the householder's feet. And the householder says, "Oh, no, 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 Swamiji." And the Swami says, "Oh, no, you are the greater renunciate. I've given up the world, but you've given up eternal bliss." Next, Kadika.
Manaso nigrahayatam abhayam sarvayoginam dukkakshaya prabodhashapyakshaya shantireva cha. Yogis who do not follow the path of knowledge, as declared in this karika, depend upon the control of the mind for fearlessness and destruction of misery, and also the knowledge of the self and eternal peace.
Yes. So for those of middling intellects or modest understanding, their serenity is dependent on control of the mind. Meaning you've got to constantly guarding your thoughts, constantly making sure your mind doesn't extrovert. Because the feeling is, if the mind just goes out of control, I'll become a pig. In the end, for the person of steady wisdom, the mind is nowhere standing. It's an illusion. The awareness of its unreality naturally controls the mind. But for yogis who still have vasana, who at times get re-identified, then they have to control their minds. So it's a bit of a poke and, a diss to some of the practitioners of Raja Yoga. They do their yamas and niyamas, their asanas, their pranayama. So they get peace when they're doing their pranayama, and they do their bandhas, and they control the mind. Because they haven't rooted out asana, when they come out of their meditation, then they scream and yell at the people in the parking lot. They still have attachment and aversion. Now, we need to not be arrogant. If in fact we have Jiva Bhavana, the feeling I'm a person, by all means, continue to work on control of the mind and the destruction of your vasanas. How do I know I need to do more viveka and vairagya? Work on being adhikari, a fit student. If I feel like I'm a person, I'm deluded. If the mind is still extroverting into the world, seriously, I really want this, there should be no talk of liberation. You're still a fool. Well, it's not real, it's not real. Mark of the person of steady wisdom. The mind is not extrovert into the world. Just like a child, we want to keep them away from the open flame of a stove. Why?
So they don't burn themselves
But why would they burn themselves?
because they're ignorant.
Say that again.
They're ignorant.
Yeah. You've been around a lot of stoves, right, Wendy?
Yes.
Do you ever have the desire to stick your hand over the burner?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm not ignorant of the damage that heat can do.
Yeah. Get the point. Just like the infant doesn't know. People in ignorance or those of middling intellects still think the world is inherently joy-giving and misery-producing. They do not see its fundamental unreality. All right, next karika.
Utsika udadheryadvat kushagrenaika binduna manaso nigrahastadvad bhavedaparikhedataha. The mind can be brought under control only by relentless effort, like that which is required to empty the ocean drop by drop with the help of the front tip of a kusha grass blade.
So those again with middling intellects or not so smart, they attempt to control the mind, and it's as impossible. It's like taking a little blade of grass and drop by drop trying to empty the ocean. Do not worry about the flow of thought. The problem is when I get caught up in the theme of my thinking in meditation, or even in the world. I get caught up in stories. Now, in the beginning, we do go through a process of endeavoring to control the mind. In 6th chapter of Gita, the Abhyasa Yoga, the yoga of meditation, at the end of it, Arjuna says, "Oh Krishna, trying to control the mind is like trying to control the wind." And Krishna says, "True, Dad. It is indeed very difficult to control. It can be done through practice." But the point Gaudapada is getting at, for those with subtle minds, the endeavor to stop the flow of the thinking, to find those spaces, is not the methodology. The methodology is get out of the mind. Stay as Sakshi, unattached, uninvolved witness. Don't believe your mind. I cannot think a real thought. The thought I just thought. No personal sense of self is real. And the most important, pay attention to my suffering, pay attention to my happiness. Suffering is always, without exception, some form of sangraha, attachment, some form of kama, craving. I think I'm unhappy because I'm not getting what I want. Yoga says, no, you're unhappy because you're foolishly wanting. It's the wanting that is the suffering. As Yoga Vasishtha says, why try to cover the world in leather when you can wear shoes? So simple. So the yogi, through insight, endeavors to reduce the number of desires entertained. Well, then I won't do anything. I'll just sit around. No, you'll act in the world. But it's possible to act in the world out of inspiration, out of expression, out of creativity, with no attachment to the outcome. Well, won't I starve to death and live in a bush in Lake Merritt? Proud of that. Your karma will take care of it all. There's no need. You do not need to take a thought for your hair to grow or your heart to beat. All that ego stuff is unnecessary. Just makes us unhappy. So, am I of middling intellect and need to work on controlling the mind, or am I the subtlest intellect and I can just let it go? You have to figure that out for yourself. And sometimes we'll flip back and forth. But listen carefully. I don't care what chants you do, what yoga asana you do, what puja you do, what pilgrimages you go on, how fancy your idol is. If we don't deal with karma, in the end it's futile and temporary. Viveka Vairagya. That's the essence of yoga. Second Yoga Sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the restraining of the mind stuff from forming vrittis. Two methods. You can control it from forming vrittis through control of the breath, stop the mind. But it won't give us freedom. How do I attain Chitta Nirodha, the restraining of the mind? See its fundamental unreality. All right, one more.
Uh, 42. Upayena nigrahin. Oh my goodness, this is the wrong word. Okay. Upayena nigrahiniyadvikshiptam kama bhogayoho Suprasannam laye chaiva yata kama layastatha. A mind distracted with desires and enjoyments, as well as a mind enjoying the pleasure of complete oblivion, laya, should be brought under perfect discipline by awakening it through proper channels. For the state of trance or oblivion, laya, is as harmful as agitations of desires.
So if we're in the state of still practicing, we haven't seen the fundamental unreality of the mind. We have yet to really live from the place aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Two things to work on. If you're agitated, the mind is extroverted, bring it back. But he introduces this term manolaya, and it's usually contrasted in the scriptures with the state manonasha. Manolaya is the mind moving towards deep sleep, basically, oblivion. Manonasha literally means the destruction of the mind. Let's talk about the difference. How do I know if my mind is going towards laya in meditation? It feels really thick, like I go away. The body usually collapses a bit. And there are people who can get stuck in laya for decades thinking it's meditation. Do you meditate? Oh, yes. I get in my lazy boy recliner. I put on my new age music. I smoke a joint. And I'm just gone for 40 minutes. Meditation. It will do nothing to free us. Now, the Raja Yogis talk about the benefits of laya. It is valuable if you're uptight and anxious and stressed. So if you take a yoga class, at the end, they probably will do Shavasana, the corpse pose. And then the yoga teacher will say, imagine you're on a beach and all that kind of stuff. The next thing you know, the person next to you had that happen in a yoga class. The mind's going to laya. And it's better than the stress that the person is living under most of the time. But manonasha is when we have these moments of the mind being silent and alert. Or vigilant. Just turn the attentive faculty so we hear the traffic. Who or what is aware of the traffic? Wonder what? There's nobody there. This is Manunash. All right, we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.